I think we can fairly say that Stars and Stripes is a salute to America.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Balanchine was very interested in America as his adopted country. Wouldn't you say so? Can you talk a little bit about his Western shirts or, you know, other ways
well, the thing with Mr. Balanchine, I think he was very proud to be an American, but, you know, being in his presence in everyday life or in the studio, he never talked about it. And I think doing Stars and Stripes indicated, I mean, he then expressed himself to the world, I am so proud to be an American. And it was so marvelous and touching. I think, well, in the audience, the opening night, he came back to say, you know, two ladies were in front of me and they started to cry. I think, isn't that wonderful? I mean, that's in a sense, that's the way he felt, wonderful. Because when we did Stars and Stripes for the first time, it was kind of a very, I would say, an important statement from Mr. Balanchine. And he was so pleased that everybody accepted it in such a responsive manner because the ballet was a big success. We danced it everywhere and all over. He was very proud of Stars and Stripes.
Now, when he began to do the choreography, your part, did he say anything to you beforehand about what he had in mind?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, that was something about Mr. Balanchine never communicated verbally. You got what his intention was in a classroom, in a studio, I mean, and when he started with you, he would be very gentle. Perhaps we would do it like this, and then music would play, and then, well, we have this amount of music, now do it like that. And that was exactly what the communication was, just the choreography itself. But it was interesting, we started Stars and Stripes not in the studios at the School American Ballet, which is the only place we could rehearse at that time because we were performing at City Center, and there's no rehearsal space that was comfortable. And we had to go to a different studio, and my partner was not Jacques d'Amboise, but Conrad Ludlow.
Oh, you're kidding, I never knew that.
Well, the thing was, well, actually, Jacques was busy doing some television show, and at that time he was very popular and much in demand. So this was one instance where he got permission not to come. I don't even think Mr. Balanchine realized that he wasn't going to be there. But when he found out, he asked Conrad Ludlow to come to the studio with me, and we did half of the pas de deux with Conrad. But he had in his mind what he wanted, and we followed it. Then the next rehearsal was in the studio with Jacques. And then Jacques had to learn what we had already done. Nothing was changed. And then he finished it with Jacques. He finished it with Jacques. And then there was a big excitement between Mr. Balanchine, I'll call it excitement, this difference between Balanchine and Jacques, because Mr. Balanchine wanted him to use character shoes for the pas de deux, and with the boots over the character shoes. Now, I don't know whether Jacques felt uncomfortable, but it did end up being ballet slippers, because I felt that perhaps Jacques felt better if he could, you know, he articulated his feet more in a ballet slipper.
Boots.
But it was boots. They're made up boots. No,
yeah.
No, actually, it was originally
looked like boots,
but then it became like a ballet slipper with the boot.
Oh, very interesting.
Yes, so that it was a soft shoe, not a character shoe. But the whole controversy was, no, he wanted the ballet shoe. And Mr. Balanchine said, a character shoe. And he said, no, I'm not comfortable, because he had rehearsed it with ballet slippers.
Sure. Oh, that's so
anyway,
interesting.
that was the excitement. My excitement doing first performance, I was very nervous. Because, as you asked me, did I know what it was about? No, nobody told me. But while we were doing the choreography, especially the pas de deux, I felt I was doing Black Swan.
Well, now,
but you know, Black Swan. Now that was very elegant, not a swan.
Whose image was that? Was that Balanchine said,
no.
Do you like Black Swan?
Me.
Oh, you decided.
Because he said nothing.
He said nothing.
Nothing. But I have to tell you, Jacques said, we are Ike, and Mamie.
You said something about Mamie, and I never heard that one.
And I said, what? Because, you know, in the variation is kind of piquant and very sassy.
Yes.
Yeah, so actually, if you think of, you know, you can't divide a character. If you're going to do Black Swan in pas de deux and something else in the variation, it's just not going to jive. So what I did, I danced it as though I was dancing Black Swan, but I had a dialogue. I related to Ike and very flirtatious. And you know, when we first did it, I was really, well, serious. But Jacques got the joke into it. And so I was really disturbed when we did the performance because there were laughs in places where I didn't think there should be. But then I caught on very quickly. The next performance that came around, I really related to him a little bit more, not dancing the movements any less or less
Well, no,
full.
because it's serious choreography.
Very serious.
Uncompromising choreography.
Absolutely. But the attitude made a difference in relating to him. It made it fun for the audience.
Yes.
So it was slight tongue-in-cheek right from the beginning, and that proved to be the way we did it.
Well, I was going to comment on that, and I was wondering, did Balanchine put that into your mind at all, or is that something the two of you kind of...
I would say there's something wonderful about Balanchine. When he picks people and chooses a person or people to work with, he already has an understanding of you as a person.
Your qualities.
My qualities. And so I always considered myself the most dramatic dancer in New York City Ballet up to a point.
Yes, yes.
But this was a little bit, I think he saw in me perhaps a sense of humor, and it worked. So he didn't really say anything. It's something that happened within the choreography between the two dancers.
That's what's so amazing.
That was the amazing thing, and it just like that. He never said anything to Jacques, never said anything to me. But in doing it and relating the choreography, we had to respond this way to each other. Couldn't be any other way.
Because you had things like gazing into his eyes, for instance.
Yes, and there were moments where we stood and looked at each other. And then, I mean, tongue-in-cheek, romantically, but sassy-like.
Yes.
Flirtatious.
Yes.
Flirtatious. So not in a dramatic way, flirtatious and coquettish way.
Very light way, yeah.
Very light. And I enjoyed dancing that so much. I enjoyed dancing in such a difficult choreography. I mean, it's a pounding kind of aerobic.
Well, why don't we talk a little
dance.
bit about what are the most difficult parts?
Well, you know, when you're being created on, you have, of course, with Balanchine, it has a beginning, middle, and an end. It does. It has a flow. It's whatever you do, whether you've never done this, ever done a particular movement before, when you're doing it and learning it for the first time, it might be difficult. But as you do it, it becomes the most natural thing. So, and logical. So with the choreography, it developed into such a logical continuity that when it became the difficult movements, there was just a continuation of that continuity. And some of the movements are really quite intricate and never been danced before or choreographed.
Well, I think certainly some of the pas de deux movements you showed today, the difficult balances and
the turns.
The turns and well, a lot of these, like the fouetté and
the fouettés, and also I must
the man
say,
steps back.
and the man not being right behind the dancer all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the one thing about Balanchine with using dancers with each other, men and women, I don't think Mr. Balanchine thought it was the right thing for a man to stand behind a woman, to be absolutely covered, or I mean,
like
hidden,
a pillar of support.
Hidden or a pillar.
Subtle.
It had to have movement with each other.
Yes.
So that there is a part in the pas de deux where I do double pirouette into an arabesque, and he's not quite
He's miles
near.
away.
He's miles away. And the
you
timing,
start, yes.
And the timing of it just meets together. So it becomes very exciting for the dancers, also for the audience.
Sure.
You just think, will they get it? Will they make it? And they do.
Well, now you have said that you and Jacques kind of evolved your parts. In other words, like most people do, it's not all there the very first performance.
No, it was definitely separate. We were doing two different things, and I was devastated because I didn't expect the laughs.
And he was behind you, so you
and
couldn't
he was
actually
behind.
even
I
see
didn't
him.
even see. So in
Right.
a sense, he was reacting to me in a way I didn't know
Oh, dear.
how he was even reacting. But then after our second performance, I really realized in certain places that I recalled where they got a laugh, and I thought, well, I'm not going to stay there and be the fall guy, you know, the French.
Yes.
I thought, well, I've got to get into this little routine.
But that's also part of the fun.
And that's part of the fun.
It's like one-upmanship in the choreography as well as the interpretation.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, but you know, it's an interesting experience when you dance with different partners. In the process, you know, Jacques being away or doing another ballet, with being occupied and dancing another ballet, not having two lead roles, somebody else would dance with me. That would be my only selection for the evening. And when I danced with other dancers, I felt very different. And if I didn't have enough time to work with that particular dancer, not necessarily in the studio or talk to that person, but actually you get a playback from the audience. Though at person, you have to do a number of performances with that new person for them to react. And some people were very good at it.
Sure, it's getting on the wavelength.
It's getting on the wavelength and really being very good. I could mention a French dancer we had in the company for a while, Mr. Andrei Prokofsky, who I danced this piece with, who was very, very much subtler than Jacques, but had the same kind of response to me and was very successful, but very different, more subtle, but really had tongue-in-cheek feeling.
Yes.
And he was wonderful, and I enjoyed dancing with him. That I had danced with other people, and it was not the same thing. I just felt I had to calm and cool my performance down because I was the comic on stage, and it's supposed to be, you know,
as you said, a dialogue.
A dialogue.
Yeah.
There wasn't too much. So.
Well, now, when you were coaching some of these very difficult pas de deux movements, you gave Gillian quite a few clues about how to stop, how to hold her balance,
right.
And particularly in that arabesque finger turn, where to spot. Did Balanchine give you this information, or is this the kind of thing you had to work out for yourselves?
This is something I worked out myself, because it was done. Mr. Balanchine said, now go deeper, a bit more en penché, and then Jacques was going in and out, and I was dipping down and up. They're very dangerous. And I thought this could be just as successful if then under the arm, and if you have a good proportion with the dancer you're with. It really is marvelous to work with someone who has long arms. I have very long arms, and Jacques, so it wasn't difficult for us. So we could do it any which way. I could go sometimes down and up and down. And as a matter of fact, in the beginning, I did penché and came up. Penché was really effective. Penché. And then with Gillian, I suggested that because I know her body and I know her center, that I've seen it elsewhere where it slows up in such a way that I want to say, why do it? Because it doesn't look exciting.
Yes.
But I suggested that she spot in both places, to him and out, which made the whole thing more exciting. And she hardly did anything.
Yes.
She hardly did, but it looked very exciting, didn't it?
Yes. Well, she was fantastic at absorbing your coaching.
Oh, well, I know her
and sort
so
of
well.
processing it in such a short time.
There are accents in the orchestration that he sometimes uses, and sometimes it can come out as a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. So you have 1 and a 5 as an accent, but the music is written 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But the choreography is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2.
I think non-dancers don't
so
realize
dancers,
always.
but they have to be taught that.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty, you know, that's the thing that preserves Mr. Balanchine's choreography. It's not steps. Choreographer has not to do with vocabulary, plie, tendu, rond de jambe, grand battement. It has to do with the design of that vocabulary. So it's not vocabulary anymore. You go beyond the mechanics of it, and it makes something. It makes a statement, it makes a phrase. It has an accent, like just orchestral music, you know? Right. So therefore, and that's part of which I've always appreciated, is his musicality, the musicality of the choreography. And for me, it was never difficult. It was so logical. Of course, if you hear that, of course you do it on 5. And you have to get there, and then go 1-1 right away. The most exciting part of my life with New York City Ballet, with doing anything, was that rehearsal room, standing in that room alone when he was doing a piece for me, and saying, now, maybe we'll do like this. And he would use his fingers doing everything, you know, you figure it out. And then you get something. It is most exciting. I had an opportunity to work with him on a very important piece of choreography in a studio where the pianist didn't appear. And Mr. Balanchine didn't want to waste this time, and he sat down at the piano and started playing the music, and he got up and he said, maybe we try this. Just use the counts. We'll count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Went back to the piano, and it was repeated. Went back to the piano, played it, and the movement fit the count.
Well, now, when you were rehearsing Stars, did he partner you also?
He tried, yes. It was interesting. There's a step that he tried out with Jacques, and it was quite difficult. Actually, for the partnering, not so much for the girl, because instead of doing a double pirouette and piqué with a passe position, it was plie and piqué and an arabesque turn. As you finish the turn, the boy had to come in and time it and continue the promenade. Now, if he came in too closely, you'd fall off. If he came in too, it wasn't close enough, you'd be reaching and you'd stop the turn. It wasn't, you know, it could. So we tried that with Jacques a little bit, and it somehow that didn't work out. We worked at it more than he usually did for a step. It didn't work out, so we ended up with what we're doing here now, the bourrée and chassé, tombé, double pirouette into arabesque promenade.
Well, that was the thing. He could always find an alternative,
yes,
right?
Yes, he did.
Something didn't work. He said, well, just throw it out and we'll do something new.
Yes, exactly.
You know, but did he actually do the partnering with you?
He did it. He could do it with me.
Oh, he could do it.
Oh, of course. That's why he thought Jacques could do it. He didn't ask anybody to do something that he couldn't do. He's a marvelous partner.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've heard that.
Fabulous partner. You could do things with him without, just hold your position. He'd have you all over the place, and you'd go, wow.
Let's talk about your variation for a second. You've talked about how difficult it is. What makes it particularly difficult?
It never really stops.
Yeah.
There isn't a moment, you know, it's a beat, 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 beat. It just has no time to pause. There is only one pause, a preparation before the last, or the circle of turns, before you do the last diagonal. That's the only time, probably about 2 notes, that you can take a breath. But if the conductor's too fast, you don't have any notes, because you have to do from your pirouette and run to the other side of the stage to start going in a circle.
Yes.
But other than that, your feet are always moving, your head is moving.
And sometimes sort of an opposition.
An opposition, and then the jumps all of a sudden, there's no preparation from the jump, it's like you pop out of the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really hard choreography. I cannot tell you how easily that variation was done.
In an hour, say, or who knows?
No more, or maybe an hour and a half.
Yeah.
No more.
No, it's just miraculous.
But because I think, having worked with me on the pas de deux,
yes,
he does everything in order. He did the boys' variation. He likes doing everything in order. Girls' variation. Caught on the feeling of the pas de deux, and everything was just right. You know,
you were both ready for it.
Both ready for it. He started, he said, now you do, dearie.
Yes.
Just do like this, you know. And then at the certain steps, he said, you know, like a baton twirler. You know how they go and strut. You know, those are little indications he would give me. This second step, which is so hard, again, a 5 against a 4. And you feel so turned in. Oh. But that I practiced a lot, because he liked the way it looked. So we did it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit about endurance, because obviously this is a real endurance contest, this ballet.
It's a very, I would say, aerobic. You know, in a sense, you go off stage, you have about 32 counts, or even if you had a little more counts, you get your breath, and then then you go at it again at a very fast pace. The tempo of the ballet at the time I did it, it started at a certain tempo, and as we accelerated, you know, did the pas de deux, it accelerated to a smash bang coda. The last section where you do the chaînés from the corner, I felt my eyelashes falling off. I mean, you spotted so fast. You had to spot so fast. By the time you got off and the jump and took your bow, and went off again and got yourself ready for the next entrance in the coda. You were absolutely pooped. I'd always take the top hooks off the top of my, back of my, my tutu, so my lungs could open and I could really open my lungs to breathe.
One question I want to ask you about the costume. It's a classical tutu, sort of, only it doesn't start at the hips, it starts right at the waist.
In the waist.
Does that make a difference in the partnering, or how does that feel?
No, that
like
feels,
it?
for me, it's the greatest because it suits my figure. Because I have a long waist, hardly any hip area. So when it came here, and I just felt, oh, it's so perky, it's perfectly wonderful. And it didn't fly up so it caught the boys' hands.
Yeah.
It was tacked in such a way, even though it looked light, it never flipped up. So we never had a problem. I did have one experience, though. For some reason, the strap from the shoulder broke, and there was my little epaulette falling off, and then broke, and then there was this part of my costume, and everybody was just wondering whether anything else would happen.
So how much more was going to be revealed?
How much was going to be revealed, and I danced as though nothing was wrong.
Well, that's because you were great.
Well, you know, I just
artist.
danced as though, you know, I thought to myself, well, if anything did happen, very few people in the front would see it. I mean, you couldn't really see it from the back. That's what I was thinking. In any case, it just stayed up, so I was
think that's
fortunate.
your determination,
My
Cheryl.
determination, Korinska's costume.
Yes.